big packet, but I don't have it all. All right, well, thanks. I just like this better than doing a scrum, you know, than these people, you know, in the scrum, they stand so close to me, and I don't know who they are. They sneak up on me, so we're not going to do a scrum. We'll just do this, and you guys get to sit down. You probably like that, right? And all the cameras fit, so. Anyway, I don't know. Beth said I did too many press conferences last week, and is this thing on? Is it on? Or do I have to push this? No? Did I screw it up by pushing it?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't work, it's just not.
It's a prop, huh? But I just figured, Beth said you can't do them every day. So we didn't. We waited till the end. And Beth said, you know what was nice? Speaker Leonard used to brief the media every week at the end. So we decided at least this week we would do that. We'll see. And if you people show up, maybe we'll do more of these. Never know. I don't know, though. I mean, sometimes I like to do it on Tuesday. You know, sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So, yeah, no, and I wish Zach Gorchow was here, but he's not here. Can you get him to come to one of these?
I mean, he's here vicariously.
Just, yeah. In his job, you have to do a lot of business development, too, don't you? Yeah, he's working. So, no, but Zach put out this thing, and it said, will you quote it? So these were the latest committee assignments, because we waited until after Wednesday. It said if we did it before Wednesday, it'd be the latest committee assignment since like 1975. But if we waited until after Wednesday, it'd be the latest committee assignments in the history of Gongwer's records, which goes back to like 1960 something. So I was going to release them Tuesday, but I said, let's wait till after Wednesday. So hopefully, you know, and I said, Zach, you made a difference with your reporting. So that was nice. So we have the committees. I'll go over that in a second. I just wanted to go through the committees and we can answer. And I'm sure you guys, there's a lot of nonsense going around in Lansing, so you guys will probably want to ask me about it. I just say, by the way, isn't it interesting? I think I'm the only one, like if you take these quadrant leaders, like the caucuses, I'm probably the only one that hasn't done a press conference this week that criticizes the governor. Isn't that interesting? I mean, you look at the Senate Democrats, they're criticizing the governor. House Democrats are criticizing the governor. Like I saw these remarks by John Cherry, I think it was, in some of your stories, and he's calling on the governor to do something. Well, don't these people know that the governor is the reason why they're in majority? It's not anything they did. John Cherry, the governor, wins by a huge margin and delivers these people majorities, and then they turn around and decide that they should tell her what to do, that their political judgment is better than theirs. You know, I see these resolutions. They tell me in the Senate, you know, and I asked the question last week, is the Senate even in session? Because nobody's talking about them. And then they told me that they passed some resolution today on a voice or a roll call vote about January 6th. These people think that the public cares about January 6th? I mean, they say January 6th, and that's what all of you people write in your papers. Like, we're working on real things in Lansing, and the media talks about January 6th for 4 years. Well, guess who won the election? Donald J. Trump. He won the election. And he said he was going to pardon these people when he was campaigning, and he did. And then they think that what they should do is focus on January 6th. I would tell them that they should be watching what Governor Whitmer is doing. They would do a lot better in the election if they followed Governor Whitmer, who's somebody that, you know, look, I mean, we have our differences, but you have to respect her political acumen. You have to respect her political talent and instincts. What did she do? She released an education plan yesterday. And I don't think it got very much coverage, but the governor released an education plan. John Cherry is having committee hearings, you know what they should do? And somebody asked this question, and they're right. They should bring in Joe Tate to testify. I mean, he's the one that they're mad at. Speaker Tate didn't present. That's who they're mad at. Why are they, and they come at me. and I like what Tom Albert said. He said this is the first time that they've had a committee hearing. And the first committee hearing is after the bill passed the House and Senate. Isn't that interesting? So all I'm saying is, instead of having committee hearings representing government workers, which seems to be the only thing the Senate Democrats care about is government workers, whining and crying about the fact that Joe Tate didn't present a bill and created a constitutional crisis, maybe they should be following and criticizing Governor Whitmer and asking her to weigh in, telling her what to do. Maybe these people should put forward an education plan. I did that in September. Do you guys remember that? We put forward a detailed education plan. And now that we have an education committee, they're going to go to work on that plan. It's a very good plan. And here we are. It's January, and Governor Whitmer now has an education plan. It's not as detailed as our plan was that we did in September, but there's some very good elements. Do you remember? We on the campaign trail, we talked about this. We said, number one, we should have a per pupil funding increase. We're going to do that with a Republican majority. What does Governor Whitmer say? We're going to have a per pupil funding increase. Then we said, you know what we need to do? We need to restore the funding that they took from the school resource officers and the mental health counselors. What does Governor Whitmer say? We're going to increase school safety and mental health funding. So thankfully, some Democrat learned something from the last election, Governor Whitmer. It's not the Senate Democrats who are still talking about January 6th. That's not going to get them an election win. That's not what the people want. It's the path that we led on. We won that election handedly. We flipped the House, the only chamber in the country that flipped. And one of the main things we talked about was school safety and mental health and increasing the per pupil allowance. And Governor Whitmer now is proposing those things too in her own way. So that's a great outcome. So I really have nothing negative to say. Maybe I'm the only quadrant leader that'll stand up here today and say, for this week, I don't really have anything negative to say about Governor Whitmer, and I would encourage the Senate Democrats to maybe meet with her and ask her some questions so they could come up with a better strategy, because they're leading their chamber in a manner that is really embarrassing so far. Then I'll just point out, we came out with, and then just so you know, I want to talk about oversight for a second. You know, our oversight committee, when I was chair, was probably one of the, I won MERS Member of the Year, which is a hard thing to do. And now I'm the Newsmaker of the Year in MERS, I think. And they still haven't given me that award, so hopefully they will. Will they give it to me?
We don't really have that award.
There's an award. You gave me an award. It was.
Newsmaker? No, we gave you for Member of the Year. Right?
No, it was Political Figure or Newsmaker of the Year. It was your highest award. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
It's like the only other person that's ever won this in the history of the award is Governor Whitmer. And then they gave it to me. But anyway, now there should be a physical award that accompanies.
Did you never get one?
No, that's what I'm asking you. Are they going to give me one? You gave Phil for Republican of the Year. Well, we need to get Kyle Malin. Maybe the next press conference he can present it to me. Wouldn't you guys love that? They turn the cameras off for that. Oh, well.
He's watching right now.
I don't believe that. If he, well, then tell him to bring the award.
He said he's right. We need to get him a trophy.
I didn't get a trophy. I want a trophy. I get all the criticism from you guys, and the one accolade I get, you forget to give me the trophy.
He just said he'll get it.
Okay.
We'll make it right.
So anyway, I won the MERS Newsmaker Man of the Year. What is it? Political Figure of the Year? Yeah. And I would just say that we came up and we did these committees, which are very good committees. I think they'll be very good, but I'll just talk about them for a sec. Did you guys look them over? Yeah, good. Do you like them? It's fun? Good. Well, I'll just say, we put Nancy DeBoer on education. I think she's really going to do a great job with the education thing. And You know, what delayed this so long was the Democrats. And I'll just say this, okay, number one, I think we finally have established, and there was a great story in the Lansing City Pulse, and I don't think I've ever said that before, but there was a great story today confirming that Julie Brixey was the Democrats' choice for minority vice chair on approps, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and so we went with Alabas Farhat. And then after the press conference, we got this list from Puri that was different, and it had Snyder there. But we didn't pick Puri. We didn't pick Farhat over Snyder. We picked Farhat over Brixey. And finally, the Lansing City Pulse is starting to get the truth out there because most people are reporting that falsely. Then I would just say the media received a list from Puri of committee recommendations, okay? And we received that after our press conference. Since then, I have received at least 6 other revised lists from Puri, okay? And they just keep sending me new lists with changes and things. So we just said, look, what we're gonna do is we're just going to go look at the members' applications. So I went and I looked at every member's application. And I looked at why, what they were interested in, what committees they were asking for, what they wanted to achieve in the term, and then we slotted every single Democrat based on their requests. And there were a lot of Democrats that Puri was trying to punish, and I think you can look at, you can start by looking at the difference between his public list and our public list, and you can start to see some of the Democrats that he was punishing. And then I won't even talk about the secret 6 lists that he sent us where he was punishing others. So we just said, look, the games need to stop. I mean, what is this? It used to be the minority party would just send a list to the majority party and the majority party would adopt the list. What you see with Puri is this weird game he plays where he goes to a member, tells the member, I'm going to ask Hall that you do this, tells his caucus something different, and then comes to me, I say no, and that's how he manages that member, and he doesn't tell his caucus that, and then the caucus, he says, Will Snyder, Will Snyder, Will Snyder, but he told Brixey something else, and he's trying to blame me. So that's not how I ran my caucus as minority leader, because I knew if I lied to my members or I tried to punish my members, the other party would just come out and tell the truth. So I just treated them all truthfully and fairly. So that's why we just said, Puri can't handle this. He's drowning right now. I don't know what these 6 lists are that keep changing. We saw similar things with their seating charts and their parking spots. We just placed them, and I think we did it in a manner where the institution is going to work very well. I think there are a lot of great assignments on here. So you look at like the Health Policy Committee, Kurt Vanderwall just has so much experience as the Health Policy Chair in the Senate in the past, and I know Karen Whitsett's going to do a great job as the Minority Vice Chair of that committee, really working to find bipartisan solutions to help make our state healthier. You look at some of these other committees like the Transportation Committee. Pat Outman was our lead on transportation in the past and did an incredible job. And really, transportation is going to be one of the most important issues because not only are you doing transportation in the sense of funding our roads, which I think is something that'll get done before I'm done as Speaker, but also if we just give them more money, what are they spending it on? Are they spending it the best that they can? Some of you have written stories that it costs more money to build roads in Michigan than other states. Peter Herzberg's going to do a great job as the minority vice chair of that committee. I'll just say on the Energy Committee, you look at Pauline Wenzel, not only are we going to have to repeal the crazy law that the Democrats passed to ban natural gas and go 100% wind and solar by 2040, but we're going to have to write the next energy law for this state, a modern energy law, and Pauline will do that along with former Speaker Joe Tate as the minority vice chair. You look at the Families and Veterans Committee, with Kathy Schmaltz. There's probably no one I've met who cares more about, you know, children and families and fighting for the people that don't have a voice like Kathy Schmaltz. And I think that Stephanie Young will do a great job as her minority vice chair, a really good job on that. I can go on, but, you know, the Regulatory Reform Committee, I think, will be a very good committee. You look at Joe Aragona. I mean, he's been a staffer up here. He's been a member. He's really one of the better members with the press. I think he does a really good job. And with Liberati there as the vice chair, I think he'll do a really good job. I don't think you people quite understand the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is going to be a very powerful committee. And they're going to make sure that these bureaucrats are reined in and that they don't get to set all these crazy rules. They're only going to set rules that are very specific. And then when a bill is sit on the floor for a long time, it'll go back to rules, and the Rules Committee will be there to fix it. And you look at that committee, we have some really key people on that committee with Schuette and Aragona and Wenzel and Martin and Posthumous and DeBoer. DeBoer is going to be our education chair, and she's going to move that education plan that we have. But that's going to be good. And even the Democrats, Whitwer, Liberati, Herzberg, they'll do a good job there. I'll just talk real quick about the oversight committees. You know, our vice chair of oversight will be Matt Bierlein. And I think Reggie Miller will do a good job as the minority vice chair. And then you look at these subcommittees. We talked about the 6 subcommittees, the child welfare system. Luke Meerman will do a great job there as the chair. The corporate subsidies and state investments, I think Steve Cara will get to the bottom of those things. You in the media, think about this for a sec. Steve Cara is going to have a gavel. And he's going to be getting to the bottom of a lot of these issues with the corporate subsidies in the state, and why these companies like GM get $666 million in violation of the law without creating any jobs and then sell their interest to Korean companies. Those are the kind of things that Steve Cara is going to get to the bottom to with Dylan Wegela as his minority vice chair. Public health and food security, Matt Bierlein is going to do a great job there. Finding out, are our public health programs making us healthier, and looking into the MPHI. State and local assistance programs, you know, this is pretty rare for a freshman to have an important assignment like this. This is a critical assignment, but Jason Wolford can handle it. Getting to the bottom of whether these welfare programs are going to who they're intended to. And remember, Democrats greatly expanded welfare programs in their trifecta. They did present those bills. Then just on the appropriations subcommittees, I'll just point out a few. I think Mike Mueller is going to do an incredible job on the Michigan State Police. You look at that, I just think that, you know, he has a background in law enforcement. It's something he's passionate about. For me, when we came up with these assignments, what we tried to do is look at not what the lobbyists think you should do, not what Lansing thinks you should do. Where is your heart and what are you passionate about? And there's nobody more passionate about our police than Mike Mueller. That used to be one of the most revered and respected police forces in the country. And now it's riddled with turmoil and all kinds of problems, and Mike Mueller is going to get to the bottom of that. I would watch those hearings. You look at our DHHS subcommittees. I mean, I think we've got some great chairs there, and Van Werkum, Green, and I'm looking for the other one. Van Werkum, Green. I switched these around a few times. Oh, who's the other one? They're going to laugh at me. Maybe they didn't put it on. Oh, and Roth. That was a last-minute switch, Roth. So, you know, John Roth has been one of our leaders on healthcare for years. He was actually my choice for health policy, and then if you remember, Joe Tate switched him. Joe Tate took last term, remember we wanted Fink to be our approach chair, we wanted John Roth to be our health chair. He took dozens and dozens and dozens of committee assignments and switched them around. Well, Roth is going to do a great job on human services. So we wanted to break up DHHS into 3 committees, and then we wanted to really dig into that department because I think it's where the most problems in state government are. Greg Markkinen will do a great job on higher ed. You know, he's got a lot of community colleges and and universities up his way, and they need a voice. So I think Greg will bring it to them. That's a key for economic development, is having supported universities and community colleges. Tom Kuhn will do a great job on our general government budget. So to me, it kind of works. You look at some of these out-of-control departments like Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State Department, Dana Nessels, Attorney General Department. You know, you're going to have kind of a three different points of contact. You're going to have a general government budget led by Tom Kuhn. You're going to have an oversight committee led by Jay DeBoyer, along with this weaponization of state government subcommittee. And then on the elections, you're going to have Rochelle Smith on elections, and you're going to have Sarah Leitner on judiciary. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of points of contact with some of these departments, but it's needed. I'm really looking forward to see what Ken Borton does as our agricultural and DNR director. I think he's going to do, he should be the DNR director someday, but right now he's just the subcommittee chair. He'll do a great job there. That's been a long time coming to get him to straighten out that department. So there's a lot of good things. You know, I think Cam Cavett will really do a great job on the Eagle budget. We got a lot to do there. There's water infrastructure needs, there's contaminated sites, and we need a little more balance there. These guys are more like, we don't need business in our state, so we're going to do some there. So I'll stop there, and if anyone has any questions, they can ask them. So I don't know if there are any.
I want to insert my UG question.
Sure.
About the importance of having someone like Carl Bonac in the economic competitiveness.
Well, you're sharp. You're right. No, there's a reason that I put Carl Bonac on economic competitiveness, and the reason is, you know, our Upper Peninsula is different than the rest of the state, and we don't just need an economically competitive Lower Peninsula. We need an economically competitive Upper Peninsula too. And that voice from Carl Bonac is going to be a big deal on that committee, as he brings the voice of the Upper Peninsula to Lansing and says, look, this is what we need to do to make the Upper Peninsula economically competitive too. And we're going to listen very carefully to the perspective that Carl Bonac brings to that committee. And then I'll just point out to you too, I mean, it's a big deal for the Upper Peninsula to have Greg Markkinen leading the community college and higher ed budget. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened before. If Zgorcha was here, he'd tell us. But, you know, to have an Upper Peninsula legislator who can make sure that those community colleges and universities in the Upper Peninsula have a seat at the table in Lansing, it'll make a big difference. And so as I look at the Upper Peninsula, you need a Carl Bonac working on economic competitiveness. You need a Greg Markkinen working on higher education and community colleges. And I hope that those two will make a big difference in the Upper Peninsula for many years. Yeah, Colin.
The Parks and Facilities Committee was a concern of Republicans last session. Just looking at this, it seems like typically there's a three-seat Republican majority on most of the committees. I was wondering if you could explain kind of the thought behind that three-seat Republican majority and why health policy has more members.
Three-seat Republican majority on which committee?
On most of them, it seems.
Yeah, so this is what I tell you. We had a decision to make here when we looked at the committees, and I would encourage you to look at the committees the way Tate did them versus the way we did them, and I think you'll actually see in most cases our majority is smaller. My recollection is that they had a two-seat majority on health, so we kept it. So that is 11, but the rest of them, I think it's only, we could lose one vote on most of them. So it's interesting, if you do the math, there's not really a difference between an odd number and an even number. So we were, you know, the Democrats would be like, this is, you know, I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but say they made it 7-3 and we made it 6-3. Well, if you do the math, there's no difference in terms of how many votes you need to pass the bill. Whether it's, so it's almost a wasted seat. So we, I think in some cases we shrunk the majorities, and then in some cases we just said, why would you have an extra seat here? It's like they had it 6-3, or they had it 7-3, we made it 6-3, because the extra seat doesn't give you anything, and we needed that seat somewhere else. What I would say is the hardest part in this is we just created 6 oversight subcommittees that didn't exist before. And then we created 3 DHHS committees. So what we needed was more slots to put people there. So, you know, the way this plays out, I think every Republican member has about 4 seats, approximately. I mean, I have 0. Posthumous might have 3, but I think Rochelle has 1. But on average, every Republican has 4, and every Democrat has 2 on average. And then there were a few extra slots, so there's a few of them that have 3. And I'm not talking about like the House Fiscal Governing Board. I'm talking about the main committees. So that's what we tried to do. Now remember, when the Democrats had majority, they bullied and punished people, and you know, so somebody like Carrie Reinigans, who's speaking out against me in the press, like Tate would probably give them 0 committees. We gave everybody 2. So I think it was fair because the margins are not inflated, even though our majority is much bigger than what Tate had and the Democrats. And then everyone is treated fairly, whether you're critical of me or not, you get committees. I mean, it's crazy that you're censoring what people say in their newsletters and then kicking them off committees based on the fact that they're critical or you don't like what they say. So we didn't do that. Was there something over here, Beth?
Yeah, in the prior session, there was some frustration with the energy committee. You know, there were really long outages and maintaining consumers that weren't really addressed within that committee. And then I think there's also a worry that a lot of lawmakers were influenced, perhaps unduly, by maintaining consumers because they put a lot of money into the campaigns and everything. How do you see the House Energy Committee moving forward? Do you see that same pressure there? And do you think all those committees will take under it, or do you think they'll actually bring accountability?
Yeah, so I will tell you that, you know, there's some things that you only know when you're on the inside. And I'll just tell you as the speaker, based on the reactions I've been getting, I will tell you this is the first time in a long time that they came up with committee assignments and did not tell a single lobbyist. We did not consult a lobbyist. I did not consult a lobbyist either. We did not share them with any lobbyists. We shared them with the members. So I did not receive any feedback from any lobbyist on these committees. And that was one of the reasons I did them this way, is I didn't want lobbyists influencing these committees because they should be based on the merit of the members. So when you look at this committee, just something I want to point out. You see Betsy Kofi is on there. Julie Brixey's on there. Myers Phillips is on there. So, you know, I think when you look at this committee historically, you might not have seen those people, and you probably may not have seen those people when you look at what Puri recommended. So, the public version, not the 6 after where he did more punishments. So I'll just say, for me, you look at this history, right? When Joe Tate and the Democrats controlled the House, they would censor members for speaking out against DTE. We saw that with Dylan Wegela. Dylan Wegela said something negative about DTE, and he was censored. And the House Business Office said, you are not allowed to say anything negative about DTE from your office. So what we tried to do was present a committee that's going to be more balanced. I mean, look, I personally believe that we need to have a strong grid. And I hope the Energy Committee and the Homeland Security Committee will look into how do we strengthen our grid, how do we protect it, how do we make it strong grid. But on the other hand, I don't think members should be on a committee because the utilities don't want them. You know, like, I don't care if the utilities want them or not. I didn't ask their opinion. I just said I think these are the most qualified people to be on energy, whether they like the utilities or not. And some of them have been critical of utilities. I mentioned some of them. And my hope is they'll number one, repeal the energy bill, which the utilities pushed, that ban natural gas and is going to force us to windmills and solar panels by 2040, and replaces it with a modern, balanced energy policy. And, you know, they should work with the utilities, but they should work with other stakeholders too, and they should get something a lot better than what they did before. And we're going to try to pass that policy through the House once it's done, and we'll go from there. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Uh-oh, I know who you are. This is going to be a tough question.
On transparency, Cara and Wendell had a press conference today about the bills they want non-disclosure. You have all the oversight committees. The FOIA bills, you talked about them a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't sound too optimistic that, you know, they've been trying for a long time and whatnot. They came out of the Senate. Now, do you have any plans to vote on the FOIA bills?
Yeah, so now I'll just say, number one, you know, I don't like the non-disclosure agreements. I believe that's what Cara was talking about with Wegela, our new chair and Democrat vice chair of the Corporate Subsidies Committee, that's going to be one to watch. And by the way, neither one of them knew it when they did that press conference. But, you know, and I happen to agree with them on the non-disclosure agreements. And, you know, basically the way that we're going to run things from here on out is if they can share with me the details of these economic development deals, or the deals won't happen. I mean, if they want to hide behind their NDAs and never tell us what the details are, then they just won't get their projects funded. I mean, it's just we won't take them up because we don't know what they are. So they have a choice to make. Are we going to share the details with the House? And if not, then they can just try to do it without the House. They can go get private funding. They can figure out some other way, but it's not going to pass the House if they won't share us the details. So I don't need to sign an NDA, and neither do any of our people or my staff. So I happen to agree in concept with Cara and Wegela. I'll talk about this. So what you saw, you know, and this is what I mean. Does anyone know if the Senate's in session? Well, they took off Tuesday, and then they were here Wednesday, and people tell me that they passed a bill, a watered-down FOIA bill. And, you know, we're not going to pass that bill. So we're not going to pass that bill. I'll just say this. What we have is real. And by the way, while the reporters were writing stories about some kind of fight between the Michigan House Democrats and the Trump administration, and then this watered-down FOIA bill in the Senate, we had probably the biggest, most transformational transparency and ethics bill pass the House, and some of you reported on it, but you guys should all amplify this because this is a really big deal. This is the most significant transparency and ethics thing that anyone has done since I've been here, and that is putting guardrails on these earmarks. And I read in some of the reporting, they said, you know, will the House and Senate get a deal on this? There doesn't have to be a deal. This is the part that some people are missing. We put it in our rules. So our rules say if it's an earmark that isn't submitted by May 1, we're not doing it. Period. We're not doing it. So they can submit us projects that don't comply with our rule, and under our House rules, we'll strip them out and we'll send it back without them. No, we don't need a deal. They'll just adhere to it because they have to, because it's a House rule. Now, I would love it if the Senate, instead of holding hearings about January 6th, came in, and by the way, and not just that, or not coming in or talking about last year, they could come in and adopt the same thing, and I'd be happy that they did. But we don't need a deal. If they won't do it, they're going to eventually have to adhere to it because a budget's going to have to get passed. And we said, with a 105-0 vote, we're not going to pass a bill through this chamber that includes earmarks submitted after May 1. We're not. So it's done. It's over. We don't need a deal. And it's 105-0. So every Democrat agrees with me on that in the House. And we walked through this process, and you guys should read that if you didn't see it yet. You have to submit your earmark by May 1. For-profit companies are banned. You have to confirm that your organization existed for 3 years. Whoever would have thought we'd have to do that? But we do, because they give earmarks to organizations that don't exist. And it has to have a place in Michigan for 12 months consecutive. You have to explain, you have to put your name on it and own it. And I understand, I mean, in a weaponized government, I understand the need for legislators to submit earmarks and override departments. But there has to be a public purpose. You have to be proud enough to put your name on it. You have to explain the public benefit. And you have to tell us who the beneficiary is, and you have to do that by May 1. That's what you're going to have to do. So I think that's actually real transparency. It doesn't happen in 2027 like that Senate bill. It happens right now, as soon as we get that website up. Then I'll just talk about a couple other things that I think are important. Ending the revolving door between legislators and lobbyists, where you actually have to worry toward the end, like, are these people working for somebody? Because if they're working for somebody, their conflict of interest might prevent them from voting the way that they should. Also, these politicians, they become lobbyists in other states. So you imagine that. Remember Rebecca Warren? So Rebecca Warren is a legislator in Michigan, and she's working for National Popular Vote, but just not in Michigan. Do you guys think that's right? So is she non-biased on the issue of if National Popular Vote comes for a vote in Michigan? It's just ridiculous that we even have to do this stuff. Like, you come in here, you don't even think that you have to pass laws that say an organization must exist to receive funding, or you can't be a registered lobbyist in other states. But you do, because politicians figure out these ways to just do this stuff and corrupt the system. So we have to put in rules and boundaries and laws like that, which we are. The other thing is, and I think Winnie Brink should listen very closely to this, we should require a 2/3 vote for a bill in lame duck. If we did that, Joe Tate would have had plenty of time to present all these bills. They would have all be presented. I was looking at this chart we made. In the 2024 session, 44% of all PAs happened in the last 13 session days in lame duck. And you look at 2020, it's 39.5% of all PAs in the 11 session days after lame duck. And you look at 2018, it's 49.5% of all PAs happened in the 12 session days of lame duck. In 2016, it's 44% of all PAs happened in the 11 session days of lame duck. And if you go to 2014, it's 38% of all PAs, public acts, happened in the 12 session days of lame duck. So we're here for 2 years for some reason, okay? And then they take between 38 and 49.5% of the work, and they do it in the last 2 weeks after the election with people that are leaving. That's not the way the public expects government to work. So if we make it a 2/3 vote, then only the real issues that have true consensus will happen after the election. But yeah, when 44% of the PAs are happening in those 13 session days, yeah, Joe Tate didn't present them all. Well, this reform, which would require a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate, and then would go on the ballot, and I believe the people would vote for it, would solve this problem. And then you'd only have those issues that you have bipartisan consensus that happen in lame duck. And these people can do these things, they can do this work before the election, and then the people can judge their work. Any other questions?
So
Yeah.
yesterday, Leader Corey, he was doing a press conference with his members, and he said that, you said that his members feel like they're being punished with
Right.
recommendations, and he asked them if they feel that way, and they responded with a resounding no. So
Yeah.
what did you say?
Yeah. What does it say about a leader that he has to reaffirm himself by doing that? I mean, he brings, and how many, we're all 52 there? 35? So yeah, okay, so 35 of them. And when the press is there and the leader's looking at you, and you say, I'm going to watch who says yes and no. You know, that's not how we run our caucus. I don't bring my 58 members up here and ask them to take loyalty oaths. I just know what was submitted, and the truth is starting to come out after this Lansing City Pulse article, and Kyle Malin did a great job with that. And I think this is a much fairer thing, what we came out with. It better reflects what the members asked for. You're going to see more bipartisan collaboration. And it's a shame that we had to do it. But, you know, when you have a disorganized leader like Puri, who's very manipulative and is trying to, I don't even know what he's trying to do. I don't know if he's trying to trick his members to make them dislike me. So it's like, I'm going to get power by telling my members that Matt Hall's a bad guy, so he's like misleading them. I don't know if he's trying to make it confusing for us by submitting 6 different lists after his public list. I don't know. I don't get in this guy's head. I don't have time for that. But I'll tell you what I do have time for, which is moving forward on the legislation I've talked about today. So we're going to do education. We're going to do more of this transparency and ethics reform. And we're going to start rolling on our plan to fix the roads now that we have committees.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about the motion yesterday.
Yeah.
Talking to Brett Bolin, and she kind of, you know, the process came together. She mentioned that the July 1 date is arbitrary.
Right.
Wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you feel about that date. She said that September 30th is the constitutional deadline. I guess, how do you feel about the timing of budget?
I agree with her. Yeah, the constitutional responsibility is to get it done by September 30th. And, you know, we'll work. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we had a budget done by July 1? Wouldn't that be great? But I'll also say that we're going to work to provide value for the tax dollars, right? These are people's money. People work very hard for the money that the government has, and we need to look at every one of these programs, and they have to justify why we're funding them. And Whitmer created all kinds of new programs under an unchecked Democrat trifecta. And so we're going to have to examine those programs and pick the good ones and fund those and eliminate the bad ones. And then we're going to have to go back and look at all of the ones that have been for decades. Are those still working? With the goal of getting value for your tax dollars and measuring the return on investment of every one of these programs, then that's going to get us the money we need to do things like fund the roads, fund water and sewer infrastructure, create a public safety trust fund, cut the income tax, reverse the Democrat income tax hike from last year, all of those things. So look, it's just like committees, right? Committees took a little longer this year. I think you'll see they're a lot better. You know, the budget will get done, but it might not be until September 30th. And I'll just say this, I mean, I watched this on Off the Record. You saw Mallory McMorrow. This was like in October of last year saying, the Republicans are going to shut the government down. I'm just telling you, if the government shuts down, the Democrats want the government to shut down, not the Republicans. The Democrats want it to shut down. And and you see, they're already planning for a government shutdown. My commitment is we're going to work really hard on getting value for your dollars on this budget, and we're going to put forward a great budget. And my hope is it'll get done before September 30th.
But a government shutdown is off the table if the Senate can't come around to negotiating?
Well, if the government shuts down, it's because of the Democrats. The Democrats want to shut down the government. They're the only ones who've been talking about a government shutdown. Is only ones. I'm only responding to it because they talk about it so much. I mean, maybe they should come to session. Maybe they should do things other than a stupid resolution of political protest. You know what we did with that resolution? We sent it to government ops where bills go to die. I mean, people don't want us working on political resolutions. They want us working on education. And I mean, did you see these scores come out about our reading scores are dropping for 4th grade reading versus other states? The cost of living is an issue. People want safe communities, and they want to keep more of their money. So that's what we're going to work on. And we're going to get a great budget that provides value for your dollars. And I think ultimately with the right leadership, which is me, we're going to get a great budget that provides value for your dollars. And I think ultimately with the right leadership, which is me, we're going to get a great budget that provides value for your dollars. And I think ultimately with the right leadership, which is me, Winnie Brinks will work with us and we'll get it done before September 30th. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Oh yeah, right here. This is my guy from Michigan Advance. And you always wait till the end. That's what I like about you. I'm about to end, and then they say, because he works for Michigan Advance and people think it's funded by the Democrat donors, he thinks that I'll walk off and not take his question, and then they won't get, they won't get their question, and then they'll say, Speaker Hall refused to comment, but I actually like the Michigan Advance. I think it's more fair than most of the press, and you actually cover the topics I talk about, so I give you a lot of credit.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to see if you could elaborate a little more. I know you mentioned that you're not interested in passing the order reforms passed by the Senate yesterday. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on some of your concerns with that? I know you mentioned the 2027 start date. Those are currently effective. Is there anything else that would need to be changed in order for the House to take a look at these bills?
Well, I think, if we haven't yet, we're going to refer them to the Government Operations Committee. And I mentioned that some bills go to die there. But I will also point out, though, you will actually see legislation moving out of that committee this term. And Brian Begole is going to do a great job as the chair of that committee. And I'll just say this, Brian Begole was a sheriff. And as a sheriff, he has a lot of experience with FOIA. He understands FOIA. He knows how FOIA works, and he knows how FOIA could work better, okay? And I think all of you, I can't believe you're advocating for an expansion of a FOIA system that all of you know is flawed. But what I'll say is this, we've got some really good transparency ideas that I've put forward, ending the revolving door, stopping politicians from becoming lobbyists in other states, a 2/3 vote in lame duck so that the politicians don't pass very unpopular bills after the election. And I put my money where my mouth is on this transparency reform on earmarks, which is the most significant transparency and ethics reform in government, and as long as I've been here. And you all know that, and you should write about it because it's a big deal, and it's going to do a lot. I mean, you look at, I think I've mentioned this, if you talk about all the grants that Beth talks about, because I used to only talk about enhancement grants. And then Beth said, Matt, do you know there's transportation grants, there's health grants, what other ones are there? Do you know? There's like 8 of them. There's all these other things that they do to try to put earmarks in the budget. So what we said is we're going to sweep all of that in, and we're going to make you disclose it. What is the public purpose? Put your name on it and tell us where it's going. And I'll just say in doing that, that's $600 million a year that they spend on that stuff. And in some years it's much more, it's over $1 billion. That's a big deal. And so I hope that you all write about it and talk about it on your shows. All right?
Thanks, but as
Thanks.
far as, just subjecting the governor and legislature to FOIA, is there any room for that in the House? Or?
Well, like I said, I mean, we're not going to move this Senate bill. I've put forward a lot of transparency bills, ending the revolving door, bringing true transparency to earmarks. You look at what I'm doing with the 2/3 vote in lame duck. I think those are really true transparency and ethics reforms. We'll see what the committee does, but this FOIA reform is a very low priority for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Michigan Advance. They're tough. They're tough. Not as tough as Colin, but they're tough. You're tough. Listen, and